Okay, so it's story time, and I'm going to tell you all the story of how I recently, as in just now, accidentally ended up at a pagan wedding, specifically a Wiccan wedding. It all started at the end of the school year. Somehow it came up with a teacher that I worked with that we both enjoyed like cosplay and Renaissance fair type stuff, dressing up like Renaissance. And I was like, oh, that's cool, it's just something I didn't know about her, she didn't know about me. We kind of talked about it for a little bit, fun. And that culminated in her saying, well, actually me and my fiance are going to get married soon. And we're going to have a Renaissance-themed wedding where everybody has to dress up like Renaissance. And I said, oh, that's a neat idea. I like the idea of a theme wedding. And she said, well, since you like dressing up like that, you should come. And I said, oh, well, thank you. That would be nice. Yeah, sure, whatever. It's not like I knew her that well, but, it seemed fun, innocent enough. Theme wedding, dress up like Renaissance is cool. Sure, whatever. So I said, yeah, sure, I'll come. And so fast forward to today. I, get all dressed up. I get my outfit together. I have my gypsy skirt and my little hat and everything. And I'm looking pretty fly, feeling pretty fly, and get ready to go to this wedding. And, and things are fine at first. I show up. Some of her friends and family are there. There's a guy who opens my door for me, like a carriage. It's very nice. And I'm just sitting and having some small talk with her friends and neighbors before the ceremony starts. And at one point, I talked to one woman, she's her aunt. Okay, cool, fine. And then there's another woman there, and she didn't really introduce herself, so I eventually said, oh, how do you know the bride? And she says, oh, well, we're part of the same circle. Now, at this point, I forgot to mention that the teacher had said she was part of this, group that was, that would do the whole, dressing up, anachronistic group or whatever, dressing up, different time periods. And so when she said circle, I'm thinking, oh, okay, it must be that, that group, that dress-up group. But then she went on to say the Wiccan circle, and I was like, okay, that's interesting. And so at this point, I'm like, okay, and she said that she was working more with her fiance at the time. Her fiance was the one who was he apparently was a Wiccan priest. And I said, oh, that's interesting. But, again, I didn't know this woman very well, and I certainly didn't know her fiance. So I'm thinking, okay, well, maybe. And she did say, oh, well, he doesn't do much anymore, but, he was part of the group. And so I'm thinking, okay, well, maybe they hang out with Wiccans, or they're ex-Wiccans, or they have some friends, but maybe they're not super practicing, or what have you. But anyway, so at this point, I'm not thinking the ceremony itself is going to be a Wiccan ceremony. I'm just thinking, okay, well, they have some Wiccan friends. It might be low-key Wiccan interesting, but whatever. So then we go on, and and then a little bit later, we're going outside, getting ready for the ceremony, and I see that same woman I was talking to. She's sitting under this tent with a bunch of stuff. There's a blanket with a pentagram, and there's some statues, some idols, and some bells and candles and stuff. And I'm looking at it and she sees me kind of looking at it at a distance, what? Okay. So anyway, so yeah, all this stuff is on this table, all this memorabilia, very definitely, clearly pagan, Wiccan type stuff. And she sees me looking, and she's like, oh, you can come on in, the circle hasn't been made yet. And I'm like, oh, okay. So she said, so she's explaining some of the stuff to me, and I'm very bad at hiding my emotions, so I'm sure she was like, okay, this girl's freaked out, let me talk to her a little bit. And there you go. So anyway, she says, oh, so, this is what we do, and I know it's a little interesting, but she's like, it's not like you see it on TV. We don't, worship Satan or anything. We worship the Creator, and we celebrate nature. And I'm like, okay. And I mean, I kind of knew some very basic tenets of Wiccanism, but she said, yeah, we worship the Creator, and to us, the Creator is male and female, so there's a god and a goddess, and there was a statue, and she said, so I'm the priestess, and my husband's the priest, and we both represent the god and the goddess, just like, a Christian priest would represent God. I said, okay, and I told her I'm an Orthodox Christian, so, I mean, we don't it's different, but I did understand the concept. And she talked about how it's all about gradually becoming one with the nature and the spirit world and stuff. And I was like, oh, well, it's kind of like theosis, not exactly, but I mean, in Orthodoxy we have this belief of theosis where you're gradually becoming more and more like God. So I kind of just tried to find some common ground just to talk, because she was very nice. Everybody was super nice, hugging, very friendly. I mean, I got hugged by a lot of strangers. I was like, okay, this is interesting. But yeah, so I learned a little bit about Wiccanism, and she got the table set up for the circle, and then finally the ceremony started, and they did they blessed the circle, and they did some prayers and stuff, and they called the east wind and all the the 4 elements and that kind of stuff. And it was interesting because some of the stuff was sort of similar again, to orthodoxy, not a lot of it. I'm like, oh, I can see why somebody from the outside looking in might think, oh, orthodoxy is kind of like a cult or whatever, because like we have, we bless things, we have incense, we have candles, and we have, and one interesting aspect was toward the end, they like had some bread broken up into a chalice of wine. I'm like, oh, that's exactly how we do communion. So weird. But yeah, so the whole ceremony, it was fine. Nothing too freaky happened. There were no goats, there was no blood, there was no like, oh gosh, I got to get the heck out of here kind of situation. But it was just very interesting, and like I said, that's how I ended up in this situation that I didn't plan on being. And like I said, I didn't know anything about the woman, so how was I to know? And it's not like that's a super common thing for people to be like, when someone says, oh, come to my wedding, I don't think your first question is gonna be, oh, are you a witch by any chance? Like, I just wouldn't have crossed my mind. It didn't cross my mind. So yeah, that's just another chapter in my wild life adventures, the time I went to a pagan wedding.